Let's speak about this issue of gun control in South Africa. I mean, we've seen some of the shootings, some believed to be gang-related, as we've seen in El Dorado Park as well as Coronationville, close to Westbury. There's also been a concern around a shooting at a tavern in Mpumalanga. There's been another shooting in Davidton in Ekurhuleni. These are but some that we've seen around the country, raising questions around illegal guns that are, littering in some of our streets. But also we know that some of these guns are stolen, as have been reported before from some of the police stations. But let's speak to Adele Kirsten, who's the spokesperson for Gun Free SA. Thank you so much, Adele, for your time. It's always concerning when we hear about these particular incidents and guns that are involved. And, viewers today talking about the fact that they believe that everyone should be allowed to own a gun because they believe that, defending themselves, and it's illegal guns that appear to be the problem. But there's also guns that are being stolen from their owners.
Well, Giwe, it paints a terrifying picture. But I think I did see some of the messages coming through. And I think what's important is that everyone is recognizing now that we've got a gun problem. So I guess that's a good start. Of course, there's some myths about guns being effective for self-defense, which we know there's no evidence to show that. But we have to take a step back and ask the question, where do guns come from? What are the guns that are being used predominantly by criminals to commit crime? What is the police doing about prioritizing and addressing this? So we know from data in South Africa that most gun-related crime, it's illegal guns. But as most countries across the world, guns are legitimate, part of global trade agreements between countries, and they all start their life off as a legal gun, legally manufactured. And so one has to look at mopping up and recovering the illegal weapons that are circulating in our country and being used in crime. But at the same time, you have to control them from source. So you have to do both. And I think the worrying thing, the terrifying thing is that we've had promises upon promises by the president, by the minister of police, that the availability of guns, that the dramatic increase in gun violence over the last year or so. We've gone from 23 gun deaths a day 2 years ago to 31 gun deaths a day.
Yeah.
It's been a sense that this has to be a priority, but we're not seeing evidence about gun violence being prioritized, and that's terrifying.
Is it because there's no will, political will to deal with this, or is the problem deeper?
It's complex. And I guess a lot of the question is, what has happened within policing as a whole. So some people will say it's issues of leadership, but we also need to look at what we've done in the past and what's worked. And so in 2000, when a new gun law was being introduced, which specific aim was to reduce the availability of legal guns, there was a dramatic decrease in gun-related violence. But it wasn't the law on its own. It was a kind of holistic, comprehensive approach to dealing with gun violence, which included bilaterals with some of our neighboring states to mop up the caches from the liberation wars. It was specialist firearms units, intelligence-driven strategies to recover guns and then to destroy them. So you need a whole package of response, and you need dedicated officers, and you need a very clear strategy to recover guns. So, for example, all of these murders in the last couple of days, many of which are mass shootings, those guns need to be recovered. Obviously, the perpetrators need to be apprehended, but the guns need to be recovered because we know these guns continue to circulate. So they move hands. They're out of those guys' hands by now, and they're circulating somewhere else. So they continue to kill and maim and injure, guns have to be removed off our streets. And we're not seeing enough effort or certainly impact of recovery. We need to know the numbers. How many guns are being recovered? And that has to be a priority.